Once again, Christian greetings, valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. More particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in Georgia, in Fiji Island, in Mexico, Spain, in Africa, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 13 on the subject, the 42 months prophecy. And still, we focus our attention to the subject on Revelation chapter 10, by which the first two verses on Revelation chapter 11 is apart. So, to repeat again, the focal point of Revelation chapter 10 is the book of Daniel. And concerning the book of Daniel, the particular object in view is the cleansing of the sanctuary in heaven and the work of the exceeding great horn. How such power had been able to successfully trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary. So, let us focus our attention to the climactic point of this revelation. First of all, I would like to read the consecrated way, Christian perfection, on page 104, saying, the time of finishing the mystery of God. So, concerning the time of the finishing, or the time of finishing the mystery of God. Then it says, but that imposture is not to last forever. Thank the Lord. This great truth of the priesthood, ministry, and sanctuary of Christianity is not to be hid forever from the eyes of the church and the world. The mystery of iniquity arose, and so hid from the world the mystery of God, that all the world followed it wondering. Revelation 13 verse 3 and 4. But the day comes when the mystery of iniquity shall be exposed, and the mystery of God in its own truth and purity shall shine forth once more, never more to be hid, but to accomplish its great purpose and be completely finished. For it is written that in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as yet declared to his servants the prophets. Revelation 10, verse 7. Now let us distinctly separate the church in the world. The exceeding great horn had been able to hide the truth concerning the daily and the sanctuary from the eyes of the church as well as from the eyes of the world. But the voice of inspiration says it will not last forever. And the shepherd's rod made it so plain that it is only through the power of the three angels' messages. It says here in 2SR page 139, but the sanctuary and the daily were held to the ground by the great horn up to 1844. At that time, he lost control of them, and the power of the three angels' messages raised the truth from the ground or from underfoot and placed it in the church. 2SR page 139. Then it says, therefore, the great horn is a symbol of the entire New Testament period to the second coming of Christ, corresponding with the legs of iron and the feet and toes of the great image of Daniel chapter 2. So, the focal point of the book of Daniel, to repeat again, is in the period of the judgment that pertains to the living, rather than in the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead. The exceeding great horn had been able to trodden underfoot the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary up to the second coming of Christ. The second coming of Christ mentioned there cannot be the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. Otherwise, we will be saying that the truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary had been completely trodden underfoot by the exceeding great horn up to the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, which is contrary to the Bible, because God's people will be lightened prior to that time. So the second coming of Christ mentioned there is pointing to Christ's second coming to the most holy place, which is pointing to Daniel 8, verse 14. Reading again into SR 184. So it says here, to SR page 184, the coming of Christ as our high priest to the most holy place for the cleansing of the sanctuary, brought to view in Daniel 8 verse 14. Or, the coming of Christ brought to view in Daniel 8 verse 14 is Christ's invisible coming to the most holy place. So, the coming of Christ in October 22, 1844 is only the groundwork, not the particular object in view, because that is the first coming of Jesus Christ to the most holy place. And in the writings of Sister White used the term Christ's return, which is plainly indicating that Jesus Christ left the place and then returned. So let us read again. Volume 2, 190. What time is he referred to? Not to the revelation of Christ in the clouds of heaven to find a people asleep. No, but to his return from his ministration in the most holy place of the heavenly sanctuary, when he lays off his priestly attire and clothes himself with the garments of vengeance. And when the mandate goes forth, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he which is filthy, let him be filthy still, and he that is righteous, let him be righteous still, and he that is holy, let him be holy still. Volume 2, page 190 and 191. And in the Great Controversy, 490, it is called the irrevocable decision, by which that irrevocable decision will be pronounced in the heavenly sanctuary, while the righteous are still in their mortal state. And, of course, that is pointing to the living saints or the living righteous. While at that time, immortality was not yet granted unto them. Now, let us carefully decipher this very important prophecy in Revelation chapter 10, by which we read several times in track number 5, page 100, saying, events to take place before the seventh angel begins to sound. And then the quotation is Revelation chapter 10. Now, the climactic point of the subject on Revelation chapter 10 is the numbering of the 144,000 according to 2TG number 14, page 16. It says, the subject of chapter 10 ends with the second verse of chapter 11. The verse which brings us to the time of the measuring, numbering of the people, which obviously is the numbering of the 144,000. Revelation chapter 7 verse 3 to 8. For they are the only numbered company of people in the thread of prophecy. Thus it is that chapter 10, including verses 1 and 2 from chapter 11, begins at the time of the end and ends with the numbering of the 144,000. So the climactic point of the subject in chapter 10 ends with the numbering of the 144,000. So what does the accurate significance of such term, numbering of the 144,000? But we need to establish the absolute fact that the entire subject of Revelation chapter 10 is pointing only to many nations, many people, perfectly corroborating to the statement in 2TG 14:16, because the many nations, the many people, they are the 144,000 living saints. So exactly, the many nations must be pointing only to the 12 nations, the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, let's read track number 5, page 105. It says, the trumpet symbolism has now brought us up to the time of the ingathering of the first fruits, the 144,000. The trumpet mentioned here is the sixth trumpet. Because the sixth trumpet covers the entire description from Revelation 9:14 to Revelation 11:14. But we segregate the sixth trumpet into three divisions. Right? Revelation 9, I would like to enumerate one by one. The first division is Revelation 9, verse 14 to verse 21. And then Revelation 10, verse 1 to 11, and 11, 1 and 2. And then Revelation 11, verse 3 to verse 14. But we need to finish first this portion, Revelation chapter 10. Or let us distinctly separate the subject on Revelation 9:14 to 21 and Revelation 11, verse 3 to verse 14. Let us focus first our attention to the subject on Revelation 10, verse 1 to 11, including the first two verses of Revelation chapter 11. Now, let us read again the statement in tract number 5, page 105. It says, the trumpet symbolism has now brought us up to the time of the ingathering of the first fruits, the 144,000. That is Revelation 11, verse 2. The last verse on the subject of Revelation chapter 10, according to 2TG14, page 16. Now it says, first fruits predicate second fruits. For it is necessarily true that there can be no first where there is no second. Wherefore, just as there is a prophetic commission for the ingathering of the first fruits from many nations, so there must be one for the ingathering of the second fruits from all nations. There being, moreover, an important event and a message of the commencement of the ingathering of the first fruits from many nations since 1844, so must there be an important event and a message signalizing the commencement of the ingathering of the second fruits, the great multitude from all nations. Track number 5 on page 105. Now, so we already explained that according to 2TG 44, page 37, it is Jesus Christ who will gather the 144,000 living saints. So, 2TG 44, page 37, saying, who gathers the first fruits if the first fruits gather the second fruits? Let us find our answer by reading Revelation 14:14 to 19. And then it says, here we are again told that there are two reapings, one by the Son of Man and another by an angel. The reaping by the Son of Man precedes the reaping by the angel. The Son of Man therefore gathers the first fruits. 2TG 44, page 37. Since it is Jesus Christ who will gather the 144,000 living saints according to the Bible, as explained by the shepherd's rod, then that statement in track number 5, page 105, a divine prophetic commission that was given to the church, and I do fully believe, we already explained that in the perfect fulfillment of the prophecy, that is the 11th hour movement, the 11th hour ministry. The only commission that was given unto them is the announcement. They are not the one to gather the 144,000. It is Jesus Christ. But before Jesus Christ will gather the 144,000 living saints, there must be a church by which unto them had been given the divine prophetic commission to announce the gathering of the saints. And accordingly, here in 2TG 43, page 11 and 12, it says, moreover, since the announcement of the separation of the saints from the sinners originates with the 11th hour servants. So, the 11th hour servants, the 11th hour ministry, they are not the one who will separate the saints. The saints mentioned here is the living saints. The 144,000 living saints. It is Jesus Christ who will separate the saints. The only commission that was given unto them is to announce. And undoubtedly, only those who responded to the call. In track number 8, page 21, it says, those who give implicit heed to the call shall have an irresistible desire to come fully into line and to have the Lord separate them from sin and sinners. So it is the Lord that will separate them. But the statement to have the Lord, meaning they allowed the Lord. They permitted the Lord. And it says, they alone shall receive the seal of God, and as the first fruits of the kingdom, 144,000 strong, stand with the Lamb on Mount Zion. Track number 8, page 21. Now let us go back again to our subject on Revelation chapter 10. To repeat again, Revelation chapter 10 is a part of the sixth trumpet. And that events recorded on Revelation 10 must be fulfilled while Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place, due to the fact that the voice cometh from the golden altar. So let us read again. Track number 5, page 78. In coming from the golden altar, the command, loose the 4 angels. And only God can command the angels in heaven. And this divine command cometh from Jesus Christ. The same way the statement in, for example, in 2TG. Let me read to you. It says here, in 2TG number 11, on page 5, it says, this cleansing work, 2TG number 11, page 5. This cleansing work belongs only to the angels of heaven. So, whether the cleansing is in the heavenly sanctuary or earthly, belongs only to the angels of heaven. This cleansing work belongs only to the angels of heaven. And this they will do in the time of harvest, after being commanded to do so, not before. So, not until they will be given the divine command, commanded to do so. Now, let us go back again to track number 5. on page 78. It says, incoming from the golden altar, the command, "Loose the four angels," shows that the six trumpets sounded sometime before the veil to the most holy apartment of the heavenly sanctuary was lifted. Otherwise, the voice would have come from the throne, the most holy place. Track number 5, page 78. And to remind again, only in this portion of the study of the seven trumpets that illustrates Christ's work or Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary that anciently illustrated in Leviticus 23 to 26, that before the high priest will enter to the most holy place, there must be a sounding of trumpets to inform everyone that they need to afflict their soul so that they will not be cut off. And that 10 days proclamation of the trumpets is perfectly typifying the proclamation of the message proclaimed by William Miller in White House Recruiter, page 19, beginning in the year 1833. So 1 day equivalent to 1 year. 10 days, it must be 10 years. So, the sounding of the seventh angel is at the time when Jesus Christ is in the most holy place. Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, 112. It says, and at that time, upon the word of the wonderful numberer, in Daniel 8, verse 14, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. In 1844 also was the very time of the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when it shall begin to sound, and when the mystery of God should be finished, as yet declared to his servants the prophets. It is closely connected to the subject, the exceeding great horn, that according to 2SR 139, in October 22, 1844, the exceeding great horn completely lost control of them. The truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary had been restored and placed it on its proper place, the church. Or in other words, supposed to be the church, or the church of Christ on the earth must be a pattern of the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, as stated in Hebrews chapter 9, verses 1 to 9. And that is why in 2SR page 139, it says, the Bible is the revelation of creation and redemption in Christ, Creator and Redeemer. Therefore, the Sabbath and the sanctuary constitute the truth. See Hebrews 9 verse 10 and Hebrews 4 verse 4 to 10. Thus, these two doctrines are coupled together, cannot be separated, and bear the whole truth. So the daily and the sanctuary constitute the truth, according to this reading. So the sanctuary on earth must be a pattern of the sanctuary in heaven. But during the dark ages of religion, not only during the dark ages, but even on the early uh, date of the first century, according to the Great Controversy, page 49. The power of the exceeding great horn already creeping into the church, and Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary became obscured, or there is the church is no longer discussing Christ's priesthood in the heavenly sanctuary. But in this study, it is even more particularly pointing to the 144,000 living saints, because they are the only one that had been described in the Bible that they follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Or, in other words, they have a complete information, complete understanding. Where is the specific place of Christ's mediatorial work? And the mere fact that in Matthew 24, verse 15, Jesus Christ is specifically pointing to the first apartment, holy place. The abomination is standing in the holy place. The first accurate significance is that Jesus Christ is trying to inform everyone that the determined effort of the devil to keep God's people in darkness, in ignorance, is concerning Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place. And I would like to say again that the occurrence in the past, it was allowed and permitted by God to serve as the groundwork, to serve as the photograph. Because that is the according to 1SR Packet Edition on page 73, saying, so completely disarming the enemy of souls, the great designer of these typological truths leaves the reader free to make his own choice as to whether he will continue in the darkness or come out into the light of the Lord, no longer to wonder what church to join or what is truth and what is error. 1SR Packet Edition, page 73. And in 2SR 267, the Shepherd's Rod called it the Great Searchlight, the typological truths employed by God to completely disarm the enemy. So, God allowed that occurrence in reality for the good of the people in the last generation. The particular object in view, the saints that will no longer to taste death, the 144,000 living saints. It says here in 1SR Packet Edition, page 58. But now at the appointed time, He Himself reveals their significance to the very people for whom they were originally and especially designed. And who are they? That is the saints that will no longer to taste death. It says here in 1 SR Packet Edition, page 74, Ezekiel was commanded to engrave a city upon a tile and to name it Jerusalem. The material on which the city was to be engraved, the being everlasting, it says, not subject to decay. It denotes that the city envisioned is one that will stand eternally, a people that shall never die. That is, the saints to be translated to heaven without seeing death, you and I. So, God employed it. And that is why B.T. Hotep says, we need to estimate the value of such photograph because thousands of lives had been sacrificed just to work out the picture. According to 1 SR page 66. Think how great the price to work out the picture. The lessons to be derived from these great examples are far greater than we have ever realized. Many thousands lost their lives to produce the picture with the intention that many more thousands would be saved than those who perish. Let us therefore carefully study into the lessons that were intended for our learning and admonition. 1 SR, page 66. So, that picture, the the value is cannot be estimated. And that's why there is an admonition in, I think, 2 SR saying, we should not despise types. 2 SR page 100, sheet 154. Let us not despise types. For that picture, the value cannot be estimated. Now, let's go back again, brothers and sisters. And I'm trying to connect one subject to the other. Now, we already explained that the sounding of the sixth trumpet concerning Revelation 10. We're talking about Revelation chapter 10. Concerning Revelation chapter 10, the sounding of the sixth trumpet at that time is pointing to the time when Jesus Christ is in the holy place, because Jesus Christ is speaking in the golden altar, and that is located in the holy place. But in the groundwork, that is during Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place to the temple, the divine command is that measure the temple, the altar, and the worshippers. The divine command saying measure the temple is to know the entire proceedings of that saints represented by the temple. The temple, according to track number 5, page 109 and 110, they are those who died from Adam up to 1844, or the first 5 seals. So that is the temple. But the altar They are the last constituent of the saints that is destined for grave and resurrection. And that is the sixth seal. So that is the altar. And according to 2TG number 12, let us read again, saying, 2TG number 12, page 30, whereas the last two seals, which contain the things that pertain to the judgment of the living, to the people, who must know that their cases are on trial. 2TG number 12, page 30. Of course, the last two seals, that is pertaining to the sixth seal and the seventh seal. So, let us go back again to our main subject on Revelation chapter 10. What is our main subject on Revelation chapter 10? It is concerning the second coming of Jesus Christ to the most holy place, by which also connected to the midnight cry in Matthew 25. Because the coming mentioned on Matthew 25 is Christ coming to the most holy place, according to TSR 181. The midnight cry was first proclaimed prior to 1844. In the coming of the bridegroom was Christ coming to the most holy place in the heavenly sanctuary for the investigative judgment of the saints. So, 2SR 181. So, that coming of Jesus Christ on Matthew 25 is Christ coming to the most holy place, according to the voice of inspiration. The same with our subject here in Revelation chapter 10. Verse 1 to 11 and Revelation 11, verses 1 and verse 2. Now, since the focal point in Revelation chapter 10 is the book of Daniel, so the time of the end must be directing to the period of time in the judgment that pertains to the living, when the book of Daniel is completely understood. When the book of Daniel is completely revealed. And the book of Daniel is pointing directly to the work of the exceeding great horn and the work of Jesus Christ in the heavenly sanctuary. Now, I would like to read track number 15. Page 57 and page 58. It says, track number 15, page 57 and 58. Thus it is that while the first four seals carry us through the periods of the day in which the works of men are made manifest, the last three seals carry us through the day of God in which His truth and His works are made manifest. Now, I would like to go directly. Who is the man mentioned here? It says, thus it is that while the first four seals carry us through the periods of the day in which the works of men are made manifest, now, since we are studying Revelation chapter 10, which is pointing directly to the book of Daniel, and one of the most important part on the book of Daniel, by which it is still unfulfilled, is Daniel 11 verse 45. The last verse before Daniel 12 verse 1, the standing of Michael. Now, let us read track number 3. So, track number 3 on page 35. So, let us read the statement. But I would like to begin on page 34. So, page 34 and page 35. Track number 3. The work of the exceeding great horn was therefore what he did not understand. So concerning the vision of Daniel, it is the work of the exceeding great horn by which Daniel do not understand. Now in page 35 it says that chapters 11 and 12 contain the explanation of the vision promised by the angel in chapter 10. So what is the promise given in chapter 10? And then it says, can be readily recognized not only from the continuity of the angel's speech, but also from the fact that these chapters are the explanation of the vision in the 8th chapter. And in 2TG, number 33, on 2TG number 33, page 10. This is the promise, Daniel 10 verse 21. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth. And there is none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael your friends. Daniel was then promised all the light. It says all the light, not just a part, but Daniel was then promised all the light that could be given, not only on the vision of chapter 8, but on all that is noted in the scripture of truth in connection with the vision. That which the angel showed him is recorded in chapters 11 and 12. It says, in connection with the vision. So what is the vision? It is concerning the exceeding great horn, the works of men, and concerning the work of Christ in the heavenly sanctuary. So, the promise given by Angel Gabriel to Daniel and informing Daniel that only Jesus Christ, Michael, could explain it. But Angel Gabriel told Daniel that all the light will be given. And we know that according to the next paragraph, it says, chapter 11, you will see, begins with the vision of chapter 8. With the kings of Medo-Persia and Grecia, as symbolized by the ram and he-goat in chapter 8. Then was Daniel told that the explanation at last was sufficient, but that it was impossible for him to understand it all, for the vision was sealed to the time of the end. Chapters 12, verses 8 and 9. So, the explanation in chapter 11 and 12 was sufficient. The only thing is that it is impossible to understand it prior to the time of the end because it was sealed. But in this study, there is no possibility to understand the intervention of Daniel without the rod. According to Revelation 11 verse 1, it is only through the light of the rod of God that this important prophecy could be clearly understood. Now concerning Daniel 11 verse 45, the last verse of chapter 11, it is closely connected to this presidential election in the United States of America. It doesn't matter whoever wins. Brothers and sisters, the absolute fact is that this is the last and the final presidential election of the United States of America. There will be no more presidential election. Now, I would like to read 2 SR 151. It says, let us read 2 SR 151. The idea that the papacy is called the beast is altogether wrong. The papacy is represented by symbols on two different beasts. First, on the nondescript beast of Daniel 7, by the little horn, having eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Second, on the leopard-like of Revelation chapter 13, by the head that was wounded to death. These beasts are universal, representing the entire world in their time, both civil and religious. Therefore, it could not be said of either beast, it is a man. The papacy being only a part of both beasts, horned head on one and simply a wounded head on the other, cannot be called the beast. The two-horned beast is the only one representing a local religio-political government. Do not forget that statement. Religio-political government. That is church and state government. It says, therefore of him alone can it be said, it is a man. That statement, therefore of him alone can it be said, it is a man. It is pointing to the predicted president in the United States of America on this coming presidential election. It says, it is a man. Now, let us go back first to track number 15. Track number 15 on page 57. It says, thus it is that while the first 4 seals carry us through the periods of the day in which the works of men are made manifest, the last 3 seals carry us through the day of God, the day in which His truth and His words are made manifest. So, the shepherd's rod, or in other words, let us distinctly separate the spiritual side and the material side. When the material side appear on the scene, and we are in total darkness concerning the spiritual side, then we are among the people by which we are already subject to be misled. That statement in that statement in 2SR 100. Let's read 153. It says, the time of that wholesale deception is at hand. It will take more than great knowledge of theology to escape the most powerful trap His Satanic Majesty has ever devised. That wonderful miracles will be convincing, and the apparently genuine spirit of worship will bring deep conviction upon those who are subject to be misled. And who are those people who are subject to be misled? They are those who do not fall in love with the present truth. And it is concerning the daily and the sanctuary. Because if the deception of the devil is very apparent, then there is no need for Jesus Christ to admonish His people to search the scriptures, to study closely. In Testimonies, Volume 5, 453, saying, the Sunday movement is canceling the true issue. They were hiding it in the darkness. 452. It says in Volume 5, page 452. It is no time now to allow our minds to be engrossed with things of minor importance. What are those things minor importance? Food, clothing, and shelter. That is minor importance, according to Christ and His righteousness. On page 74. That is minor importance. And it says, while men are sleeping, Satan is actively arranging matters so that the Lord's people may not have mercy or justice. Reading volume 5, 452. The Sunday movement is now making its way in darkness. The leaders are concealing the true issue, and many who unite in the movement do not themselves see whether the undercurrent is standing. Its professions are mild and apparently Christian, but when it shall speak, it will reveal the spirit of the dragon. Shall we wait that it shall speak? No. At the time that it shall speak and our names are not found in the Lamb's Book of Life, we cannot stand. Now, I would like to read again the statement in 1 TG 50, page 25. It says, we see that if we do not fall in love with the truth, deception is inevitable. No, none are deceived by coming in contact with error. For we are in contact with it anyway from the time we are born to the time we die. But everyone who does not love the truth, what is the truth? The daily and the sanctuary. To SR 139. It says, but everyone who does not love the truth is sure to be deceived, regardless what he may do to avoid it. Regardless. Once our names will not be found written in the Lamb's Book of Life, we are already subject to be misled, regardless how we may do to avoid it. Because only God can protect us, and God will not protect anyone whose names are not found written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And the Bible is very plain in Revelation 13 on verse 8. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him. Shall worship him. That is the devil or demon worship. But that demon worship in volume 6, page 15, and also 1 SR 214, it is not something that horrible. Because the statement in 2 SR 153, genuine, apparently genuine worship. And it says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. So any names that cannot be found written in the Lamb's Book of Life shall worship that system, the mark of the beast system. Now, let's go back again. the voice of inspiration is already telling you and I that this kind of system, it was hidden in the dark. The true issue had been concealed. And you cannot detect except only by the prophetic word of God. That statement the statement in 2SR 153, it says, 2SR 153, only by a prophetic knowledge of the truth. 2SR 153, only by a prophetic knowledge of the truth with confidence in a thus saith the Lord, and in the power of His Spirit, can one escape the wily snares of the devil. Only by the prophetic knowledge of the truth, with a confidence of a thus saith the Lord, can one escape the wily snares of the devil. Now, it is even more particularly pertaining to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. That according to the voice of inspiration, the it is after the entire proceedings of the first four seals, by which the works of men are made manifest. According to reading in track 15, page 57. What is the word? What is that man mentioned in that reading? The exceeding great horn. That horn power. When that horn power is at work against God, let us read again, track number 3, page 25. Track number 3, page 25. It says, from this juxtaposition of Daniel 8:11 and 12, and Daniel 11 verse 31, the reader will observe that both scriptures are speaking of the same power. What power? Of course, that is the power of the devil, illustrated by the exceeding great horn. And Christ predicting the signs of the end of the world, as He looked forward along the stream of time, declared, when ye, His followers, who were to be living at the time that this horn power was at work against God, at work against God, at work against His truth. What is the truth? The truth concerning the daily and the sanctuary. So, let us study closely, brothers and sisters, that statement. And against His people. Now, I would like to go directly. The people mentioned here is even more directing to the saints, the saints to be translated to heaven without seeing death, or it is called the very elect, according to 1SR. Let us read. Here in 1SR, on page 214, it says, the intention of the complete satanic scheme is to deceive the whole world. The statement made by Christ is true, that he, Satan, will try to deceive even the very elect, the 144,000, if it were possible. Would you think it is possible that the 144,000 living saints will be deceived? Well, on the person, I would like to say, it is possible. It is possible if Jesus Christ would not intervene. The situation is the same in the days of Daniel. Let me read to you. In Prophets and Kings. Here in Prophets and Kings, let's read. It says here, and 572, recorded in Daniel 10 verse 13. For 3 weeks, Gabriel wrestled with the powers of darkness, seeking to counteract the influences at work on the mind of Cyrus. And before the contest closed, Christ himself came to Gabriel's aid. You see, Jesus Christ himself came to help Gabriel. It says, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 120 days. Gabriel declares, but lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Daniel 10, verse 13. And that is only an illustration that if Daniel would not stand up, then it is possible that the 144,000 will be deceived. But Jesus Christ will stand to deliver them with such deception, to help them with such deception. Now let us go back again to the reading in tract number 3, page 25. When ye, his followers, who were to be living at the time that this horn power was at work against God, this statement, brethren, there must be a particular object in view, because it is inscribed in a future tense. living in at the time, who were to be living at the time, that this horn power was at work against God, against His truth, and against His people. Therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. Now, by studying the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, there are two things that we need to ever remember, brothers and sisters. By which we can ascertain clearly that this horn power is already at work against God, against the daily and the sanctuary, and against God's people. Remember, if such deception is apparent in our finite observation, there is no need for God to have that ultimate admonition, injunction to study closely the book of Daniel. That admonition in Matthew 24 verse 15, plainly indicating 100% that the only medium that you can detect that such power, such horn power, is already at work against God, against His truth, the daily and the sanctuary, and against His people, is only through studying the book of Daniel. But what subject? But it must be in the time of the end. When? Not in the time of the end, the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead. Because at that time, the shepherd's rod was not yet given. But Revelation 11 verse 1, it says, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod. It must be at the time when the shepherd's rod the rod of God, as stated in Exodus 4 verse 20 and 21, or Micah 6 verse 9, had been bestowed by God. Without that message of the rod, it is impossible to detect or discern that horn power is already at work against God, against the daily and the sanctuary, and against His people. Only through the power of the rod of God. Now, as I've said, there are two things, brothers and sisters, that we need to ever remember. When does the horn power had been predicted that it is at work against God, against His truth, and against His people? First, it is during Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place. Is it during the Dark Ages, that is only the photograph. Because it is during the proceedings of the first four seals, according to track number 15, page 57. That in that period of time, that horn power is already creeping into the church. Creeping into the sanctuary. But it will be manifested after the proceedings of the first four seals. Now, it is very important. I would like to show you. Remember the proceedings in the holy place from 44 AD to 1844. That is in the holy place. It is the first five seals. First five seals. Therefore, it cannot be the fulfillment of tract 15, page 57, because it says the first four seals. Now, the proceedings from 1844 to 2011, it is the proceedings of the first four seals. Is it during this period of time? No. Why? Because Jesus Christ during this time is in the most holy place. That horn power is at work against God, against His truth, and against His people during the time when Christ is in the holy place. So it could not be here because Jesus Christ at this time is in the most holy place. It could not be here. Yes, Jesus Christ is in the holy place during this time. But the proceedings is first five seals. So, it must be from 2011. Because in 2011, Jesus Christ is in the holy place. For the proceedings of the altar and the worshipers. But it must be after the proceedings of the first four seals. Then for sure, at that time, that horn power is already at work. Now, when does the first four seals, the proceedings of the first four seals, ended? Now, let us show to you here a little diagram. So, there's no more number here. Is this one? Why is that there is no number in this? This diagram. The five distinct calls in the most holy place. You did not place a number here. Now, first of all, um, brothers and sisters, who are they, the first four seals? Who are they, the first four seals? Now, I would like to show to you first, here on it is September 18, 2016. So, the proceedings of the first four seals ended on September 18, 2016. Therefore, it is in 2016 that the first four seals, the proceeding of the first four seals ended. So it must be from 2016 onwards, from that time, the predicted time by which the horn power is at work against God, against His truth, and against His people. We would like to inform everyone that the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary were clustered by God by resurrection. The first four seals, they are those who will be resurrected on the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17. Because there are three resurrections. Revelation 20 verse 5 and 6, and also 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17, Ezekiel 37, and Daniel 12. The altar, according to tract number 5, 110, they will be resurrected in Daniel 12. But Ezekiel 37, which is represented by the third seal, from Abraham down to the apostles, they will be resurrected on the special resurrection on Ezekiel 37. And there are only 6 seals that is destined for grave and resurrection. The first 4 seals, the first seal, second, fourth, and fifth, second visible coming of Jesus Christ. The third seal, Ezekiel 37. The sixth seal, Daniel 12. And we know the seventh seal, they are the saints to be translated to heaven without seeing death. Now, for sure, brothers and sisters, to repeat again, that horn power is already at work. That horn power is already at work against God, against the daily and the sanctuary. From 2016, it was already at work. And this presidential election of the United States of America is only to finish that work that had been started already. Now, I would like to read tract number 8. on page 21. It says, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth at the time of the sealing of the 144,000, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Now, let us picture out the occurrences. What is the 4 winds? Mark of the beast system. So the voice of inspiration is very plain. Saying, hold the 4 winds. It must be at the time when that system are already in existence. Or it can be simply understood that the term 4 winds must be pointing to the time when that bill became a law. And to hold its implementation. It can be called winds at the time when it is still a bill. Now, the Bible is very plain, right? Let's read. In Revelation 13. Let's read. Revelation 13. I would like to go to verse 15. Revelation 13 verse 15. And he had power to give life. You cannot use the term give life if it was not dead. And according to such historical event, it says that that bill died in 1888 through the protest of Alonzo Jones. But it says here in Revelation 13:15, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And that is the very thing that the 4 angels were holding. That image of the beast should not speak. Meaning, to hold its implementation during the sealing of the 144,000. And we repeated several times, brothers and sisters, that according to the vision of Sister White, in early writings, page 38, that Jesus Christ is pleading with God the Father to hold the 4 winds because the remnant were not yet sealed.
But why is it that they are called remnant? That is the fulfillment in reality, the perfect fulfillment of Isaiah 4 verse 1. Because Isaiah 4 verse 1 is complete apostasy. Isaiah 4 verse 1 is wholesale deception. On March 27, 2021, there would be great spiritual darkness in the entire United States of America. Spiritual darkness will cover the whole earth, and that earth is symbolical earth. Gross darkness. Here in Isaiah chapter 60, on verse 1, it says, Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. The same with the verses in the New Testament saying, walk in the light while it is still light, it is still day. Or John 12 verse 35. Arise, shine, while it is still daytime. Because according to verse 2, for behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. Spiritual darkness. When Jesus Christ says, it is finished, there is darkness. Brothers and sisters. Now, let's go back again to our reading on Revelation chapter 10. Why is it that God wants His people to have a certain understanding, complete knowledge, when this horn power is at work against God and against His people and against His truth? How do we know? How could we be able to ascertain clearly that this horn power is already at work? By finite observation? By what we hear? No. Only by the prophetic knowledge of the Word of God. It is hidden in the darkness. It is studying the Bible through the light of the rod of God. And God is informing you and I thus, after the proceedings of the first 4 seals, while Jesus Christ is still in the holy place, that horn power is already at work against God and against His truth and against His people. And that is why, of all the elections in the United States of America, to all the obedience, this presidential election, you need to be absolutely to be in abstain. Let us read again the fundamental Christian education, the admonition given by saying, we have no battle in this political world. And also the statement saying, we will be partakers of their sins they committed while in office. Why is it that you have, we quoted that several times. I call upon my brethren, and also the statement that partakers. I call upon my brethren, Fundamental Christian Education, page 478. I call upon my brethren, all my beloved brothers and sisters. If you have brothers and sisters in the United States of America, please inform them. Be abstain in this presidential election. Do not engage. I call upon my brethren who are appointed to educate, to change their course of action. It is a mistake for you to link your interest with any political party, whether Democrats or whether Republican, to cast your vote with them or for them. Those who stand as educators, as ministers, as laborers together with God in any line have no battles to fight in the political world. And then it says, the people of God are not to boast, to place such men in office. For when they do this, they are partaker with them of the sins which they commit while in office. Now, let us go back again to our subject. In what way that we are very certain that this is the last and the final presidential election of the United States of America? By studying the daily and the sanctuary. Now, I would like to enumerate again. When does the horn power is at work against God, against His truth, and against His people? Answer. It is during the time when Jesus Christ is in the holy place. It is during the time when Christ's mediatorial work is in the holy place. Is it Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place from 44 AD to 1844? That is only the groundwork. Why? Because the shepherd's rod made it so plain. It is after the proceedings of the first 4 seals. What is the proceedings from 44 AD to 1844? First 5 seals, temple. Is it the proceedings from 1844 to 2011? Because that proceedings is the first four seals. It is not. Because at that time, Jesus Christ is in the most holy place. It must be during the time when Jesus Christ is still in the holy place, and at the time when the proceedings of the first four seals are already completely finished. And when it was finished, 2016. Now let me read to you 2TG. 2TG number 41. Page 4. 2TG 41, page 4. The most exciting current event that we know of is the presidential election, which stands only 2 days in the future. As the nation sees it, this is now the biggest thing in the world, even though many will not get what they want, for each one of the different parties has named its own nominee on the presidential ballot, but one president is to be elected. And maybe you can watch in YouTube or I think the Republican Party, they are trying to emphasize July 6. I think July 6. Because according to them, that is the time by which that party had been established, the Republican political party. And in reality, there is a close connection with the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. Now, notice, to repeat again, brothers and sisters, B.T. Hotep says that the presidential election stands only 2 days in the future. I've asked many Davidian Bible workers, when I asked them, what does it mean by 2 days in the future? Here in 2TG 41, page 4. And then immediately told me that is from the time B.T. Hotep wrote the statement, then 2 days, that is the presidential election of the United States of America. Then I look at page 3, it was written November 6, 1948. November 6, 1948. And when we look at the historical event in 1948, the presidential election is November 2. So, brothers and sisters, it does not exactly fit the statement. And that is why we fully believe that statement in 2TG 41, page 4 is prophetic, predicting the presidential election in the United States of America in 2016. Because November 6, then 2 days in the future, that is November 8. And that is the exact date of the presidential election of the United States of America in 2016. So the year 2016 is prophetic. And it points out to the prophetic nation, United States of America. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. (1948). The statement here, November 6, 1948. We will show to you the some phenomenon, the presidential election in United States of America. We have that comparison, 1948 and 2016. Look at, brothers and sisters, 1948, that is leap year. 2016, that is leap year. Now, in January 26, 1948, the supermoon appeared on Monday. November 14, 2016, the supermoon appeared on Monday. Would you think that is just a mere happenstance? How many years from the call of Abraham to the baptism of Jesus Christ? That is 1,948 years. Brothers and sisters, 1,948 years. This 1917, that is the time that Abraham left Haran. But 1921 BC is the time by which he left Ur. So let us distinctly separate Ur and Haran. But the fact is, 1948 is the entire period also of the third seal. 1,948 years. Closely connected to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. Now, let us go back again to our subject, and we'll continue in the next episode. The divine command in Revelation 9:14, it says, saying to the 6 angels which had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. That is the divine command given by Jesus Christ to the 6th angel. And the time when Jesus Christ gave the divine command to the 6th angel, Jesus Christ is in the holy place, in the golden altar. But notice, the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates, that is in Revelation 11 verse 3. Not Revelation 11 verse 2. What is Revelation 11 verse 1 and 2? The climactic point is the 144,000 living saints. And they were in bondage in Egypt, And where we could found in Revelation 11, brothers and sisters, that God's people had been bondage in Egypt. That is found in Revelation 11 verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So Sodom and Egypt could not be the Euphrates in Revelation 9:14, because Euphrates, that is the river of Babylon. The river of Egypt is Nile. And it is directly pointing to the 144,000 spiritual Israel, because the literal Israel, they went out of Egypt, and the spiritual Israel, the 144,000, will come out of Egypt as well. So let us read 1 SR. 1 SR, page 101. It has been made clear that Israel after the flesh is a photograph of Israel by the promise. In the Exodus movement, all the tribes went out of Egypt. If this is a photograph of Israel by the promise, then all the 12 tribes must come out now as well. 12 tribes must escape the ruin of Ezekiel 9, death of the firstborn, and Isaiah 63, the Red Sea. The number of them is said to be 12,000 from each tribe, making a total of 144,000. And here in 2TG, number 15, let us read the statement. Pages 11 and page 12. Now we may ask, who is the beast of the bottomless pit? If the star that came from heaven and opened the pit is Christ, and if the locusts that came out of the pit are the Christians, then there is no way of escaping the conclusion that the beast which came out of the bottomless pit is symbolical of Christendom. What is the bottomless pit? It says, Christendom. But what Christendom? Apostate. It says here in 2SR 157. 2SR 157. Said the angel, the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman seated. Revelation 17 verse 9. It has been previously explained that the heads represent the present-day apostate Christendom. What is Christendom? The dominion of the Christians. And that is pointing to the United States of America. Thus it is that the Lord was crucified there. It's very important to understand this prophecy because it points out to the perfect fulfillment of the 5 symbolical months. From crucifixion to the ingathering of the 144,000. By which the crucifixion, literal crucifixion, in April 1631 AD, is only the photograph, the groundwork. Because trumpet study is a symbolical prophecy, not literal. That is literal crucifixion. And it is in the Christendom, symbolized by Sodom and Egypt. Now that the city is spiritually called Egypt, what is city? Church. City represents church. Now that the city is spiritually called Egypt, it denotes that it is holding God's people in slavery. The name Sodom denotes that God's true people will have to be rescued from it as was lost. 2 TG 15, page 12. We'll continue that subject on our next episode, brethren, and hoping that God would help us and would guide us. Thank you very much. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.